Hi everyone, my name is Savannah Smith, and my topics are verbal politeness and conversational turn taking. Now, with verbal politeness, everyone has a need to be seen in a positive light, and they need to be seen as polite and just have a good impression. And if you're being impolite, nobody's gonna have a good impression of you. And with being polite, being direct is seen as very impolite. So if you're asking for money, saying, give me $100 is direct and it's impolite. But if you're going to be indirect and just ask and say, could I please borrow $100? I'm having a rough time, then you're respecting that person's right to refuse. And they're more likely going to want to help you if you're being polite to them. Because being disrespectful is probably not going to get you a very good impression on other people. With hanging out with people, generally if you state a preference, it's going to be seen as more polite. Like if one of your friends asks, hey, would you like to go see this movie? Instead of saying, no, that movie seems stupid, I don't want to do that. Saying something like, oh, I'd rather go play tennis or go to the park. Or something like that, it would be seen as much more polite. And they would be much more obliged to hang out with you doing something else than if you outright refused them and were rude about it. There's differences between genders when you're being polite. Women are generally seen as more polite and more sympathetic and more understanding because of how much they apologize and how indirect they are, while men are usually being more direct about things when they tell you to do something or ask for something. Conversational turn taking is conversations are a two-way street. If you're talking and not letting the other person speak, if they're talking not letting you speak, if you're both talking at the same time, or if nobody's listening to anyone, it's not a conversation, and you can't have a conversation if you're doing things like that. Conversations are a pretty hard skill to master because there's a lot of social cues to understand that a lot of us take for granted. Like being able to understand when to listen, when you're supposed to speak, what reactions you're supposed to have, and what's inappropriate to say or what's an inappropriate reaction to what that person just said. It's all a lot to have a firm grasp on. So, say you're talking to your friends and they start to trail off and then look at you, that probably means that it's your turn to speak. But a lot of these cues are extremely subtle and pretty easy to miss, so you might have an awkward pause here and there, and that's not great. But it takes time to master, and a lot of us have not mastered the art of communication. Generally, when someone addresses you by name, that definitely means you're supposed to speak next. But with conversations between a boss and a worker, generally the boss is the one who controls what goes where in the conversation, and it's a little harder to know what you're supposed to do when it's kind of a stressful person to talk to. Anyways, those are my topics. Thank you for watching.